Serpentis trucker. Serpentis transporter. What do you have in there? What do you have in there? 1 million titanium. Holy crap, this changes everything. 50,000 Mexla. Also, I mean, also appealing, but 1 million titanium. Okay. 10,000 cubic meters. We're going to kill these 2 cruisers. Just so that we can come back to this belt and have it not be occupied. We're going to bookmark this wreck. And then we need to go back, fit the cargo hold expanders to Carmela so that she can have 650 cubic meters of cargo space. And then we're going to do like 13 back and forth runs to pick up as much of that titanium as we can. Maybe the Mexilon too. Yeah, Mexilon's only 1 cargo load. Holy crap. Let's see what you have, just out of curiosity. Another one of these! This one belt. This one belt has changed the course of everything. I'm at a loss for words at this turn of events. My goodness. Okay, I need to stop gawking and get moving before these wrecks despawn or somebody else comes and loots that titanium on us. Ho 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 ho! Look at us! Look at us! Fat cat, titanium fat cats. Titanium moguls now. We're gonna be able to build 2 Thoraces. 2! Well, 2! 2! Oh! Oh my goodness. This is exciting gaming content, you guys. This is Bill. Bill wants to build a Cynabal and join the Angel Cartel cause in Zarzak, but he's not making it easy on himself. Who are all these Jans? Who are all these Janars in my Manar? I hope that all of these Jans and Skies and Hellraisers are not going to try and interfere with my important titanium hauling. All of this out of here. Everything, even the ammo. We have a micro warp drive. We have 2 cargo expanders. Let's go pick up some titanium. 675.3 cubic meters. We bookmarked the wreck, so we should be warping right to it. So we land, we fill up our cargo hold, we warp back to Manar. It was the transporter. Okay. So we got 7% of it. So another 13 runs. We're going to do it. Back and forth. 68,000 titanium, just like that. At this point, both a Confessor and a Macarial have taken note of what I'm doing, including the character who's in system, who is the Macarial pilot. So I decide to stop going gate to gate and instead just ferry the rest back to the station in Mormbalot to be picked up later. It seems like a safer plan overall, although if somebody does start waiting for me at that belt, it's going to be very difficult for me to get the rest of the titanium out without just getting insta-blapped by a Macario. There's Macario. Okay. I don't love that. I'm going to stop going back and forth to that station. Made a safe spot near the belt so that I could warp to it before warping straight there in case Jason Osran of the Tuskers in his Macario has scoped out what I'm doing and has decided that he wants to come blap a catalyst in a belt. Make sure I'm in scan range of the belt. I should be very close to it. Yeah, he's not here. Okay, good. Back to the original game plan. That's it. Just one more trip to pick up the rest of the Mexilon, and we will have, against all odds, secured all of these minerals. So after a full hour of shuttling back and forth between the Workomi Corporation factory here in Minar and the belt in Mormolot, Cannell the Catalyst, making 15 trips in total, 15, managed to ferry 1,000,000 titanium from the wreck of the Serpentis transporter back here to our hangar, which means that we currently have 1.58 million titanium and all the other minerals that we need to build a Thorax. In fact, we're just like 100,000 pyrite short of being able to build 2 Thoraxes. And we have 90 million ISK, which means it's time to go buy some BPOs. Now, we have to fly high, low, high to do it, and we really, really don't want to lose our Thorax BPO to a gate camp, so Carmela is not the ship for the job. We'll be flying in Angela. So we have enough looted modules from Serpentis Rats to build a very reasonable looking armor blaster Thorax. Basically the big brother of Carmel the Catalyst. However, I do think that if we're going to be trying to grind out more low-sec ISK, which we will need to do, more on that later, in the Thorax, we might be better served by a railgun fit. And if we're going railguns, I'm kind of tempted to go shields. So I've got brewing an idea for a railgun shield Thorax, and once we've bought the core BPOs that we absolutely need, I might buy a few more BPOs on this trip to allow us to build and test out that fit as well. The blueprints that would be required for us to try out this railgun shield fit look relatively cheap. Now the other thing that we're going to buy is the expanded cargo hold 1 blueprint for sure. And then maybe that's it for now. Thorax blueprint, 82,250,000 ISK. 200 millimeter railgun 1 blueprint, 1 million ISK. Thorium charge M blueprint, 225,000 ISK. Antimatter charge M blueprint, 400,000 ISK. Cargo hold 1 blueprint, 16,640 ISK. Ice Harvesting Skill Book, 400,000 ISK. Ice Harvesting Drone Operations Skill Book, 100,000 ISK. There's a Cyclone sitting on the gate in Minar. He's a suspect. I have an 82 million ISK Thorax blueprint in my hold. I'm hoping he's not fit with too many sensor boosters. This could be tragedy. Whew. Oh. There was not much else I could do there. But just align and pray. Oh, that guy. That was the worst moment for him to appear. I would have been pretty sad to lose all this stuff. Okay, we've gotten the blueprints safely to the station in Minar. Despite a last-second heart stopper. I see no reason to waste even a moment of time. Let's get a thorax building. We have the required materials. We have the required skills. Start. It will take 3 hours. We'll also start building immediately some ammo for it. And in fact, we'll build immediately this 200mm railgun 1 blueprint. We only have a couple of meta medium railguns currently, so I do want to build a few of these. We have 2 medium railguns, so we'll need to build 3 more in order to have a full rack. In fact, they don't use that much minerals. I'm going to build 5 because I noticed that our other railguns are 250s. And given that these are long-range weapons, actually having a mixed rack of 200s and 250s could end up being really inefficient. Now, once these are finished building, we will be able to fit a thorax and take it out for a spin immediately. It's going to take us 3 hours for the thorax, 3.5 hours for our ammo. While that's in the oven, though, we still have 6 million ISK remaining, and there are a couple of more blueprints that I want to buy. Specifically, if we're going to try a railgun thorax, we should do it right and try a railgun shield thorax. But in order to buy a shield extender blueprint, we need to fly over to Caldari Space. Multi-spectrum shield hardener 1 blueprint, 750,000 ISK. Large shield extender 1 blueprint, 312,000, 420 ISK, 420. And while we're here, what a treat. Station container blueprint, 180,000 ISK. Yes, please. The more astute viewer might notice that there is one blueprint conspicuously missing from our purchases. The whole reason we wanted to build a thorax in the first place was because it could field an ice harvesting drone, but we have not purchased an ice harvesting drone blueprint. That's because the ice harvesting drone BPO costs 30 million ISK, and we're down to just a smattering of change in our pockets. So as soon as this thorax builds, we're going to be out in the belts and maybe in some anomalies, trying to earn our way up to 30 million ISK so that we can buy the ice harvesting 1 BPO. That is our immediate goal. The big moment has arrived. We are ready to take delivery of a thorax and 5 railguns and 2,500 antimatter and 2,500 thorium. Before I forget, we're not even going to look at those things until we start a few more things building. Multi-spec, 1 large shield extender, 5 expanded cargo holds. Okay, let's look at our ship hangar. 1 thorax, ready to be assembled. Building a Cynabal's thorax. Let's climb inside. I want to say it's majestic, except it does kind of look like a weird shark with a bunch of tumors. A little bit of a Space 747 liner kind of thing going on. Let's take a look at the fitting screen. Okay, so we have a number of different viable options for fitting the thorax. We could reasonably go blasters or railguns, and we could reasonably go shield tank or armor tank, and we could also consider going either AB or micro warp drive. And we'll get pretty different capabilities and playstyles depending on which we choose. I think because the first things we're going to do are, I think the first thing we should do is head out to the belt and try doing some of the same belt routing we've been doing in Carmella. because we know what to expect. There won't be any surprises, we won't get overwhelmed, and we can get a feel for how the Thorax flies. So with that in mind, I think I want to start off by fitting it basically like a big Carmella. So we've got these 5 neutron blasters, and we've got 3 of this type and 2 of this type, which is quite nice because it means we'll have only 2 weapon groups rather than the like 7 that we had for a while in Carmella. I also think we want to go afterburner. So we're going to be getting in close and orbiting. The Thorax's signature is bigger already, so we don't want to bloom it with the micro warp drive, and its agility isn't as good. If we want to get a tight orbit around a battleship, we really want to be afterburner fit. For this first trial run, we'll definitely go armor. Right, now we don't quite have enough power to fit the armor rep, but we have this Mark 1 compact power diagnostic system, which will help our capacitor and should also give us enough power grid to fit the armor rep. Perfect. Then we're going to fit a damage control. So I think I'm going to fill these last 2 spots with damage mods. And then the mids, we're going to go with 2 webs because we ourselves are slower. And our guns are larger, so for killing frigates particularly, we're going to need to slow them right down in order to track them properly. And I don't think we have anything that's a really strong contender for the 3rd spot. We could go with a scram, but I think we're really going to be trying to avoid PvP combat. A 3rd web could work, but I think I'd rather actually use one of these tracking computers, which gives us a tracking and a range bonus. And in a lot of ways it's similar to a web, but will also give our blasters a little bit more reach. Now we can't afford to build any medium rigs yet, which is a shame, but also maybe a blessing in disguise, because as we're figuring out what our fit's going to be, it's nice that not fitting rigs gives us the ability to freely change the fit later without sacrificing anything. So let's see. We drop some antimatter in here. What kind of DPS we get? See, that's the thing. The blaster DPS is basically the same as Carmella's was. Now, we have way more hit points, and we've got a much stronger active tank. And part of the reason we got the Thorax is because it has this 50 cubic meter drone bay. In fact, that's one of the main reasons we chose the Thorax for the ice harvesting drone. But of course, we can also put combat drones in there. Now, we didn't bring Horatio with us to Minar, but we've trained medium drone skills. And notice we have 4 Hammerhead 1s here. Okay, so now we have 58.9 DPS from our drones. Oh, and our DPS up here is already updated to 300. Okay, I think this is good enough for a trial run. We have to get out there and start shooting something before we can figure out what we need to change. The only thing we need to do now is give this monster a name. We had Angela, Carmella. Is there a good TH name? Thelma. Actually, that's kind of like gender normative, you know? Both of my first 2 ships had girls' names. Ships can be boys too. Thomas. Thomas is a good Thoraxy name. Thomas the Gank Engine. Okay, let's hope there's something for us in one of Minar's 3 lonely belts. We're going to warp a lot more slowly. Our ship has lower agility, so it'll take longer for us to enter warp, but also our actual warping is slower, which is another advantage the Catalyst has for belt routing. When you're bouncing around a lot from belt to belt to belt and in between systems, you cover that distance quickly. So by using a smaller ship like a destroyer or a frigate, you lessen your travel time, which necessarily increases your risk per hour. All right. Let's launch our hammerheads and see how quickly we take down this Serpentis Chief Safeguard. Okay, well, he was dead by the time I finished adjusting my hotkeys. Well, that seems like a good sign. So we're going to just leave our tracking computer always on. Okay. That went pretty fast. Alright, this ship might be growing on me. Okay, Thorax. You're not so bad. I kind of dig your weird off-center wing. Or whatever this is, your fin, and this, like, goatee you have going on here. There's a long time between belts, though. Okay, battle cruiser. So what is the range on our blasters? Okay, fall off, so we can actually do some damage out to about 10 kilometers. Which is definitely another thing that's nice about the medium blasters versus the smalls. They're still very short-range weapons, but they're not quite, like, 1 kilometer or nothing weapons. Their tracking is still very good. Pretty fast. Oh. And that's nice. I'm a little bit leery of taking it between systems, because it's easy to catch on gates. But I do want to take it over to Angatilli, try some 0.2 belts. We're going to risk it. Got Limerive all to ourselves. There's a ton of belts here. Here we go, our first battleship. We'll see now how badly Thomas gets hit by the Baron's weapons being slower and larger. We're going to come in at an angle. We're going to launch our drones and send them to deal with these frigates. Although we'll certainly web and shoot them if they get close enough. Okay. Bring to an orbit. And he's missing us. Alright, this still works. This still works. I suppose this is faster. It doesn't feel that much faster than Camilla just yet, I wouldn't say. We probably need to train up our drone skills some more. I trained drones to 4 in order to be able to field these 4 drones once we had this guy, once we were in the Thorax. But I haven't really trained any of the like supplementary drone skills, like their tracking and damage and speed. So we're definitely not getting the most out of our drones right now. Our blaster skills are better. Alright. So Blaster Thomas the Gank Engine, can do the same dance that Carmella is so good at. They get in close to a big ship, orbit under its guns, and blap with blasters. Same plan still works. Oh, this clone soldier is hitting us hard. We don't have our AB on yet. We're going to see how well our armor tank works. Yeah, so we can't avoid the damage from this clone soldier the way that we could in Carmella. Let's see once we get in close if we can still orbit under his guns. Can we still stabilize here, or is it hitting us? Yeah, okay. So we can still get under the clone soldier's guns, but the approach is much more risky. Are we out tracking our guns? Yeah, we're out tracking our own guns. And our hammerheads are getting out tracked. We're killing this guy way more slowly, and there's somebody in local, which is another thing that makes me uncomfortable, because we can't GTFO nearly as quickly. Proteus. That's maximum danger. We need to recall our drones and align out. Combat scanner probes. And it's just him and us in system. We are being actively hunted. Oh man. We won't be able to sit for long at our safe spot. We'll need to make another safe spot out near Angatelli. We're in a very dangerous situation here. Combat probes mean we're not even safe at our safe spots. We have to keep making new safes and bouncing in between them, and we can't even safely flee back to Manar. A combat probing Proteus is almost certain to have a cloak, so even if the gate appears clear on D-scan, he could be sitting cloaked on gate, follow us through, and then with our slower time to warp, catch us on the other side. Carmela could have reasonably stormed the gate, but the cruiser is just too big and too slow. We may actually want to dock. Wait, this guy to lose interest. This could be a kickout station. It looks like it's potentially a kickout station. Oh no, probably not. Those fins stick out farther than the undock does. We're just going to sit tight for a little bit. The nuke has left system. We're going to try and get Thomas safely home. The only person in system is Salusha Shiar, who is in station with us. Angatelli. Chen docked. Oh, Chinook logged back in, and Salusha Shiar was in a Magus, I think. Command destroyer. I have a bad feeling about this. Proteuses are known for fitting hyperspatial rigs and warping fast. If he saw where we were going, he could easily have beat us here or be on his way. Cloaked. Going straight to a safe. And hoping that neither of them spike into local behind us. I have a feeling that Salusha Shiar and Chinook are the same person. And that she was hoping to boosh me off the undock with the micro jump field generators that the command destroyers have. Jump me out of redock range, and then come kill me with the Proteus. And ring warp to the station. Oh my goodness, that was stressful. Thomas, I love you and I'm proud of you. But a low-sec belt rider you're not. That's Carmela's job. To clear my head, after this extremely close brush with tragedy, I did take Carmela out on a low-sec ratting expedition to a nearby cluster of 0.1 and 0.2 systems in a Mar faction warfare space. And Carmela comported herself with exactly the aplomb we've come to expect from her. In an hour and a half, she brought in 10 million ISK and a wealth of minerals in the form of those highly efficient modules we've been looting. And so, with the taste of success in our mouth, we were ready to come back and take another look at what was wrong with Thomas and what could be right. Okay, so the Blaster Afterburner belt ratting fit for Thomas was a bust for a couple of reasons. Most notably, it just wasn't significantly better at the job than Carmela is. It's got about 50% more damage than Carmela, but it's slower between targets, it has tracking issues against clone soldiers, and it's much slower in between belts. The second issue with it is that it's too vulnerable. So when we're in tight orbiting a battleship with a blaster Thorax, if an enemy appears on grid, it takes us longer to get off grid, which makes our chances of being caught much higher, and we're much more vulnerable on gates with our slower time to warp. Both of these things, I think, actually come down to how perfectly suited Carmela is in the belt ratting role. So when we have need for belt ratting, it makes much more sense to use Carmela for the job rather than risk losing Thomas, especially considering that right now, it took us so long to save up the minerals to build Thomas. And as it stands now, I believe that we could build another Thorax if we needed to. Yes, we have all of the minerals in place to build another Thorax. But we couldn't build two more Thoraxes. If we lost Thomas, we'd really be on our last reserve. If we lost Carmela, which, I mean, let's not. But if we lost a catalyst, we could build 13 replacements before we ran out of minerals. That makes the risk proposition a lot more appealing. and belt routing is a high-risk activity. But there is another PvE application. Oops. This is heartbreaking, but also kind of hilarious, but also heartbreaking. What I've done here with one accidental click is commit to building 13 catalysts, using up the entirety of our titanium reserves and a big chunk of our other minerals. And there are no takebacks in EVE Online industry. If I were to cancel this job right now, we would not get back any of the minerals we've committed to it. So in one swoop, we have evaporated the entirety of our safety net. We can't even build one Thorax anymore, let alone two. If we lose Thomas, we're screwed. And the funniest part, the best part really, is that I don't realize immediately what I've done. I'm recording this right here in post-production. At the time, I somehow thought I'd only accidentally built one catalyst, which would be recoverable. In order for me to comprehend the true depth of my screw-up, it's going to take a while. It looks like we're building a backup catalyst. I meant to close the window. There is another PV application that we haven't tried yet. So, Blasters AB, not a success. How about this? Full rack of railguns, large shield extender, thermal shield hardener instead of the multi-spectrum, because I realized that we're only really taking thermal and kinetic from the rats here in Manar. We've got a full rack of magnetic stabilizers, except for this one power diagnostic system, which gives us the grid to fit the large extender, but also gives us the shield and capacitor buffs that we were using it for before. And then we've got a web and a micro warp drive. So because the range of our railguns is really substantial, we will be warping in to anomalies where the swarms of enemies are, but we won't get swarmed because we will align out, which helps us get off grid more quickly if we need to, and we'll pull range on the enemies and just blap them one by one with our railguns. And if anyone gets close, because the railguns don't track great, we'll web them. And we've also got drones in reserve. Let's give this a shot. Thomas, take two. We'll start with a hidden hideaway, which should be a very easy proposition, but it allows us just to test the general idea of the fit. Let's see what our application looks like. Oh, there we go. Okay, applying just fine to these frigates at 30 kilometers. We're one-shotting them. Take out all the frigates before we deal with the cruisers. And we want to get these guys sort of lining in behind us. So our optimal range is 19, but our fall-off is 30. At optimal range plus fall-off, you do half damage. But at optimal range plus half fall-off, you still do like 80% damage. So our fall-off is actually 11, because our fall-off range is within 30. So up to 24 kilometers, we'll be doing most of our damage. Oh, our drones are taking damage. One of our hammerheads died. We're now used to having to manage drones. This is going pretty well. This is actually quite a bit more involved than a standard hideaway. We're taking these guys out pretty fast. So the nice thing about this fit doesn't actually do more damage than Carmela does. But it does about the same damage as Carmela does, and it does it from 30 kilometers away while aligned out. So for situations like this, where there's a large number of enemies in a small area, as there are in an anomaly, we can take essentially 0 damage while doing this, and also be ready to get off grid at any moment. So it's not just about DPS. We don't go up to cruiser only for the DPS. It's also for the flexibility and the range, which we're going to make good use of here. We've got only the tiniest scratch on our shield so far. Our railguns are basically deleting these guys in one shot. Now we're firing thorium here instead of antimatter for the increased range and the lowered capacitor usage, but we do have the option of switching back to antimatter to substantially increase our DPS if there's something that we can't break with the DPS at this range. But so far, that's not been a problem. Is that the site clear? So the other thing we can do now, see all of these wrecks in one little area? What we're going to do is we're going to bookmark one of them, And we're going to warp back to the station. Thomas is very slow to fly around doing looting, but we don't need Thomas to do the looting. We've built some more salvagers, and what we can do is we can just hop into Angela, and in her retirement, she can do what she's always loved to do the most, which is sit around salvaging wrecks. We'll hop into Angela, we'll put on some cargo extenders and 4 salvagers, a micro warp drive, we'll warp back here, and we'll just blitz through all of that loot and salvage in one go. We do need the salvage because we don't have any rigs yet for Thomas, and building them requires a lot more materials for the medium rigs than the small rigs did. So the nice thing about these anomalies is they create these dense clusters of wrecks that we can just dock up, reship, and then knock off right away. Here's Angela in her retirement dress, 2 cargo expanders, a full top rack of salvagers, micro warp drive, shield booster just in case any incidental damage comes in, and then a couple of small cap batteries, which aren't the ideal fit, but they're what we have, which will help her keep those salvagers running. I'm not going to make you watch this this whole salvage spectacle, but we're going to knock through this entire site pretty fast with 4 salvagers. Well, let's go for a nice big step up in difficulty and try out a yard. This is something that Carmela certainly wouldn't have been able to handle. It really seems like the biggest risk to us here is actually these missile batteries, so we'll deal with them first. And we can web down this 1 blaster NPC at the same time. These guys seem to be long range, so let's just zoom in quickly on these guys with antimatter. So with antimatter, our optimum range is only 11 kilometers. We do quite a bit more damage once we get into that range. We can blap these guys pretty quickly. You can see why with a larger ship, anomaly ratting is generally more profitable than belt ratting. The whole advantage here is that the ships just come to us, right? These cruisers just keep spawning more and more cruisers for us. We save all of the time that we would otherwise be spending flying belt to belt, jumping system to system. Instead, we can just kill 6, 7, 8, maybe 20 cruisers all at once, and then come back for a single looting and salvaging session. It really is efficient. The limitation, of course, is that you are dependent on signatures that you can do spawning. I'm not sure we'll be able to do any of these rally points yet. So after we finish this yard, that might be it for Thomas ratting anomalies for right now. I really don't want to be bouncing systems at the moment. And we'll do a comparison after the ratting ticks come in from these anomalies and see which of the two is actually a more efficient way of earning ISK right now with the ships we have available. I'm not sure. I think it might be a toss-up between Thomas as an anomaly runner and Carmela as a belt ratter. I wouldn't be surprised if Carmela ratting belts actually gets us ISK more quickly. Although it certainly can't be ignored the amount of easy salvage that we're getting from shooting all of these cruisers in one place. So I do think we'll end up doing a mix of both, even if the belt ratting is the higher ISK per hour. Micro warp drive, get a bit of distance from whatever spawns next. Oh, that might have been it. See if the yard despawns. It despawned. We're going to try a rally point. Someone just sent me 1 ISK. God damn it, Haluliku Garsk. I know it's you. We've actually loaded the faction Iron M that we looted from that faction rat way back in the day. It's a much longer range ammo, so the base damage is less, but because it's faction, it does not as much less as it would otherwise do. And since we're trying to run this rally point, which is a more difficult site than we've run before, let's make use of it. 35, being able to do damage to 35 kilometers in optimal range is pretty nice. There's no denying that. Squadron leader, you murdering bastard, those men had families. Pretty funny. Got battle cruisers now. Let's see if we can outrange them as well. We need to train whatever that drone control range skill is. Right now I'm having to fly in closer to these guys just to get close enough to stick my drones on them. And shoot them from well outside my drone control range. Whoa, that's a bunch of cruisers. So this is where Thomas really shines. We're fighting a mix of 7 cruisers and battle cruisers simultaneously. We're taking basically no damage. We're aligned out to station. We're pinging them from 30, 25, 30 kilometers away. If Carmela was trying to tackle this situation, she'd be pulped. She'd have to get in there close, and everyone would be shooting her at the same time. And even though none of them would be applying well, overall the situation is just too hairy for her. But with Thomas, we just turn our back to them and plink away. And the total bounties that we're receiving from killing these 7 cruisers and battle cruisers, which is just one wave of like 5 so far in this rally point, the bounties that we're receiving are bounties that Carmela would have to spend half an hour bouncing belt to belt to belt to find this many cruisers and battle cruisers. The fact that they all line up here for us to plink them off one at a time is a really huge advantage. So these rally points are probably the most common anomaly to spawn in Minar, it seems. From what we've seen here in our probe scanner, rally points appear more than anything else. And if Thomas can run them without risk, I won't be surprised if the ISK per hour of running these rally points is competitive with the ISK per hour that Carmela's bringing in routing battleships in the 0.2 space. Of course, let's not speak too early. We're still only midway through this rally point. Oh, a battleship. Keep our transversal up versus the battleship, and we should be fine here. And once these battle cruisers are down, we'll come in and we'll orbit the battleship at 9 kilometers with antimatter. It should go down pretty fast. Gotta be kind of careful spiraling in on this guy, though. We need the transversal up pretty high to not take shots from him. Okay, within our fall-off range now, we can start shooting him. Not sure if it's better to like use one burst of micro warp drive to try and get in close, but I am worried about the signature bloom. We'll do 1 cycle. There we go, now we're under his guns. Against a larger target, we can still actually, against a battleship, we can still get in with antimatter on these railguns at 10 kilometers in orbit. And we still track fine, but he can't hit us. So it's not just kiting. We can kite the smaller ships and the same size ships, but against battleships we do still have an orbit tight option. It's just not a 500 meter orbit the way it is with Carmela. Alright. Serpentis rally point clear. Look at this field of large and medium wrecks. Angela's gonna have a field day. Oh, 3 million bounty tick just came in from running that rally point. That's a pretty good, pretty encouraging sign of the viability of running these anomalies in Thomas. I like how this is looking. I've got a little bit of wallet work to do here because some jackass has been sending me ISK. So let's see. Total ISK in 2.407 million from transfers. I've been sending it out periodically. I have to send another 2330 to my main in order to equalize this. This is a headache I did not expect to have. So please don't send Bill ISK. Please don't send Bill random contracts of loot. Please don't try and, contaminate the run with outside ISK. If you do want to give Bill something, then actually what I'll welcome is if people want to contract Bill skins for ships that he's flying, then I will accept those as long as the cost of the contract is 0 and there's no other items or ISK associated with the contract. If you contract Bill a skin with 0 ISK attached to it, I will accept it, I will redeem it, and then in a future video, maybe you'll see Bill flying the skin that you sent him. But you don't have to send Bill anything. Just please don't send him ISK or modules. Please. This is a lot of medium and large wrecks to salvage and loot all at once. Hopefully, after we finish salvaging this field, we'll be able to build some rigs for Angela. I feel like we might have figured out more or less what her fit is. I think that the shield and railgun fit is really working for us. So we're probably going to stick with that, which means that buying rig BPOs now would be reasonable. What we would like to build would be some rigs that will help us with damage and range on those railguns, which means we are going to need to get some of the hybrid weapon trigger mechanism salvage or whatever they're called. And if we're going to do it anywhere, this huge pile of Serpentis medium and large wrecks is probably going to be the place. That is a fair bit. It's a fair bit of salvage from one site. This is nice. I've not been salvaging our belt ratting because flying around, like reshipping to Angela and flying around to all the belts that Carmela's been ratting at just seemed like such a headache. But with Thomas doing these anomalies, because all the wrecks are in one place, it's not a problem at all to fly out here with the 4 salvagers and just through the whole thing. And we've got like 50 units of salvage here. Hopefully pretty soon we'll be able to build those rigs. Okay, we are at 19.6 million ISK, and we only need 30 million for our ice harvesting drone BPO. And Carmela is sporting a couple of fancy new blasters because we looted a couple earlier from those anomalies that we ran. So Carmela's DPS is up to 267. So I say we take this old girl out for a spinner on the belts and see how quickly we can rack up 10 million ISK. I want to try and manage my transversal really well here, because I'm considering doing something crazy, which is that I actually have a couple more high damage neutron blasters, which are the largest of the small blasters, that I could fit onto Carmela, but I haven't fit them yet because I don't actually have the power grid for it. So what I was thinking was that maybe, because so often Carmela manages these fights without even making it down to armor, although while I'm telling this story, I'm down in armor now, I was considering the possibility of pulling Carmela's armor rep for another gyro stabilizer, which would dramatically up our damage to begin with, but would also give us the ability to fit our biggest guns that we're not currently using. And this was a pretty dangerous looking spawn on this belt, with 2 chief defenders and a high bounty battleship. So I was thinking to myself, if we can manage this spawn without needing to use our armor repper, then maybe we don't actually even need the armor repper. Now it looks like we are going to manage the spawn without repairing, but we didn't manage it in shield. So maybe it's not time just yet to go pulling our armor repper off. But we'll consider it. I really want to, even though we have the Thorax, even though we have Thomas, I really want to continue refining this fit on Carmela. because it's really so delightful. I always have this feeling when I go from a larger ship, even though a cruiser isn't that large of a ship. When I go from a larger ship back into a smaller one, just the agility, the freedom of the small signature, the speed. Something about the small ships really speaks to me. And like I said, I'm happy with Thomas. Especially now that we've got the railgun fit, Thomas, he knows his role. But he's not our everything ship. And I really kind of feel like Carmela, maybe for the rest of this run, might be the closest thing we have to an everything ship. I'm not going to get tired of getting into a tight orbit against these battleships and just taking them down with blasters. It's delightful. Plenty of minerals in that micro warp drive, although minerals aren't really the main thing we're going for. Speaking of which, I picked up one of these earlier. 1.8 million that ISK tick, that's nice. Another one of these, and another meta cargo expander. Pretty nice. A 650,000 ISK bounty battleship in a 0.3 system. That's not bad. I've actually been having some slight regrets about choosing Manar as our Valente low-sec campground, just because there's only the two. It's got the two 0.2 systems, Agatilli and Mormolot, immediately next door to it. But then that's it. Everything else that's in the region, in the area, is like 0.3 or 0.4. And there really does seem to be a pretty big jump between 0.3 and 0.2 in terms of how many battleships you're going to see in the belts. And the more frequently you encounter battleships in the belts, obviously the faster you can make ISK when you're belt bouncing looking for them. And then in 0.1 systems, battleships are even more common, and there is no 0.1 systems around here really. There's a couple of Amar 0.1 systems a few jumps away that we went to at one point, but our Carmela is not nearly as efficient shooting Bloodrakers as she is shooting Serpentis. So it would be lovely if we could move somewhere where there was a tight cluster of 0.2 or 0.1 Serpentis systems around. Of course, now that we have 1.5 million Tritanium sitting in Manar, the prospect of moving to another Valente low-sec home base is a little bit daunting. A little bit daunting. But maybe we can do an excursion. Maybe we can do an excursion over to a lower security section of Valente space. I did just see another 3 million ISK tick come in. Only 5 million left to go. Well, 5.5 million left to go before we can buy our drone BPO. Oh, Clone Soldier. You get bounty on this guy. 1.25 million. Oh, shoot. Somebody on YouTube mentioned that there are actually NPC buy orders for these Clone Soldier tags. This buy order is NPC 2 million. We can sell these. 2 million ISK for this one. And we have several more of them back at the Manar station. We might actually be at our goal. There's a Concord station right here in Lemarive that will buy Clone Soldier tags. This is the 0.3 Clone Soldier tag. They'll buy it for 2 million ISK. That's not even that much less than the estimated player buy. Clone Soldiers might be the ticket for us in terms of ISK. And if they're guaranteed to drop 2 million ISK for us, and if there's a Concord station right here, alright, NPC buy order. 2 million. Okay. We have 2 more of these. And one of this one that's, worth 37 million. They buy that here too. Player order. That's an NPC order. All right, back to Manar. Those tags are going to push us over the limit. They're going to push us across the line. We're getting a nice harvesting drone BPO tonight. I just have to figure out where you can buy ice harvesting drone BPOs. Okay, so it turns out we don't even have to fly back to Lermarev. There's a Concord assembly plant in Olide right next door to Manar that will buy the tags. And we can also buy our ice harvesting drone blueprint in Olide. Bam bam. We're flying in Angela again, just in case there's another nasty surprise for us on the Manar gate on our way back out. Although, really, we're alone in Manar now. It'll take us all of 30 seconds to sell the tags and buy the blueprint. Can't imagine anyone would set up on the gate in that time. But we're not taking any chances. Angela is nimble. We have learned that a cyclone at least can't catch her on the Manar gate, so we have reason to be confident. The estimate is saying these 3 clone soldier tags are worth 42.3 million ISK. We're going to get 6.5 for them, and we're going to be happy about it. We will be pleased as punch to get 6.5 million for them. $32 million ISK. All right, who is selling that blueprint? Center for Advanced Studies, school. We earned that 30 million fast. Like 24 million? We earned it pretty fast. And only some of that was because we have access to Thomas. I think a big part of it is just that we're getting our groove. Building good habits, maybe? Hopefully. I'll take this, please. Well, let's get that home and get it building. 3 capsules jumping through. They're probably flying capsules out to their mining ships, or maybe their ice mining ships, I bet. In Manar, that would make sense. Tomorrow, that's going to be us. That's going to be us going to the blue ice belt. One of the 2 blue ice belts in Manar. With our Thorax, ready to do the most efficient possible ice mining. Okay. Ice harvesting drone 1 blueprint in the item hangar. Oh, we've still got these things here to reprocess, but first we've got a drone to build. And our catalyst that we accidentally built is still going to take another... Are we actually building 13 catalysts? We can't be building 13 catalysts.